matter, and they really fucking matter. There's like 4 things that matter, and they really fucking matter. I mean, objectively, I mean, you should care, especially you, if you thought about it for 5 fucking minutes.
Welcome to episode 17 of the Outer Voices podcast. As always, I am Rakeem with my co-host, Esme. Tell them hello today.
Hey, y'all. How are y'all?
Oh, my gosh. We've had a crazy weekend.
It's been one for the books.
We've survived a lot. And had a good time doing it. It was good to have a nice, relaxing weekend after like these past couple weeks of absolute craziness.
Just going with no stopping.
It's been freaking insane. Absolutely insane. But like I said, great weekend. And I'm hoping we have a good show today.
I think that we probably will. We've got a very cool guest on today. I'm extremely excited to hear what she has to say.
She is a very cool guest, if I do say so myself.
You better say so. You see her an awful lot.
Oh my God. You guys are going to figure that out later on who she is. But today's show, our show topic is going to be a focus on mental health, specifically in the Black community, with some tie-ins to impoverished neighborhoods and in the South, because it's like statistically speaking, the South is a real hotbed for mental health issues and very little funding to help fight those issues.
Yes.
So we're going to take a look at that in our topic segment. Of course, we have Esme's sex segment coming up at the end of the show. And as always, we're going to have some very talented musicians giving us our music for the week. I listened to their some of their music and like it. It's usually not my speed, but I like it.
For some context, I found this week's musicians last weekend, actually. I attended on Saturday night, the Memphis Girl Fest, which was a local festival of music put on in support of the Southern Girls Rock and Roll Camp. But it was an entire festival of musicians. I believe there were 10 bands there, all of whom featured female musicians. And this happened to be one of the bands that I was able to make it for. I was not able to see all 10 bands, unfortunately, but this is one that I was able to see, and I fell in love with their music immediately. And I got very, very excited to have the opportunity to have them on the show. And so I approached their lead singer and invited them, or like brought up the possibility of them being on the podcast, and she was very enthusiastic about the idea. And so now here they are on the show, and we will hear more about them later on in the show.
I can't wait. Like I said, usually not my bag, but I enjoyed it very much so. With the few little housekeeping things out of the way, are you ready to get down to our news of the week?
Oh, ready's a strong word, but yes.
Oh, with that reaction, I gotta hear what you got.
So I guess I'm going first.
Yeah. That was my secret way of doing it.
So this is something most of our listeners have probably heard of. It has been in the news for the last few days, very heavily, because it's just so outlandish. But being from the West, I have a special connection to this story, which is the new congressman from Montana, Greg Gianforte, who was able to secure his congressional seat, despite currently facing a court date in June for his assault of a reporter. Have you heard about this?
Yes, I have.
Of course you heard about this.
He body slammed the reporter.
Yes.
Allegedly.
But even the Fox News reporters who witnessed the alleged event have backed up the victim's story of what happened, and in fact went further in like claiming what happened than he did. Right, where like they said, they came out and said, yeah, so they Gianforte like grabbed this man by the throat and body slammed him, and then like hopped on top of him and started punching him.
Yeah. He thought it was in a WWE match.
Something. Something. But then was elected as the Montana's new congressional representative anyway. And I'm holding out hope for the people of Montana that one of the reasons that he continued to be elected, right? Like he proceeded to be elected after this incident is because something like 37% of eligible voters had already voted via write-in ballot at that point, right? Like at which point you can't just go change your vote. Like it's done. So a number of people who may have not voted for him because of this incident had already voted for him. And so this was not able to affect the outcome of the election as much as it should have.
So did you hear about, because they interviewed some of the people who voted for him, and after the alleged incident.
Oh no! I only have heard the opinions of the people who are still on my Facebook friends feed who live in Montana, who voted for him.
So this came from me from I can't remember the site it was on. It was a news site, but they did some like open interviews, like just let people talk.
Yeah.
And the consensus of the people who voted for him after the incident was reported, they said it actually made them more likely to vote for him because he, quote unquote, proved how much of a man he was. And how he was willing to take action. Which very much goes back to our talk on masculinity last week.
Yes, exactly.
But I mean, there it is on display. A good deal of people voted for him because he proved how much of a quote unquote man he was by body slamming a reporter.
Yeah, and so this like holds to a lot of things. Like this incident is extremely unfortunate, but is not really actually surprising.
No.
Given what's been going on at the national level lately, right? Where we're seeing this extreme painting of the media as the enemy. Right. So I had posted immediately after, or very, very shortly after this happened, had posted about, because I am originally from the state of Montana, so I have a lot of friends and family who are still in Montana. And I posted a thing about how people in Montana should go vote because it's not okay to do this kind of thing to a reporter who's only asking questions that you don't want to answer. Right? That he didn't like the questions he was being asked and didn't want to answer them, and the reporter was insisting that he answer them, and so he then did this thing, allegedly. And several of my people who are still on my Facebook friends list made comments about how, well, it's also not okay to harass somebody. And I'm like, okay, well, if he was like at his house, right, like doing a thing, right, that's not okay. but he was in a place where a reporter had a reasonable expectation of asking a question and having
Right.
it answered.
There, as a public politician, you're supposed to have a certain amount of transparency, especially when it comes to the press. And when you're out in an area where there's multiple like press people asking you questions, you cannot physically attack them for it. Like that's not harassment. That's them doing their job as a reporter in regards to you doing your job as a politician.
Yeah.
Now, if it was a paparazzi incident, that's different. But as a politician and as reporters who report on politicians, it's part of your job to have some restraint. And it's part of their job to get the story. But when you have one, and like you mentioned earlier, when you have a federal administration that is openly aggressive towards the press and who paints the press as enemies of not just the administration, but to the American people.
Yes.
Someone physically harming a reporter becomes an act of like heroism.
Yes.
Which is sick.
Yes.
Because even the craziness of him continuing to be elected and things, it puts our relationship with news in jeopardy, because if those trying to get a good picture, a true picture of what's happening and report it to the public are being assaulted and in the long run silenced and being considered like aggressive and bad for the American people for reporting truth or reporting the news, then eventually, like, the end of this scenario is the news we get being only supportive and being completely and totally biased for the people in charge, which is, my God, extraordinarily against the very concept of America.
Yeah, right. Like I was gonna say, like, not only does this put our relationship with like the trustworthiness of the news into peril, but this throws our entire, like, the American people's relationship with the First Amendment into question.
Right.
Right? Like, how free of a press can you expect when the consequences of asking questions that politicians don't like is for you to be physically assaulted? Right? Like, that's asking a lot of anybody in any position, right? Of any job. Like, you can go do your job, but you doing your job correctly will likely result in physical injury to yourself. Right? That is like that's a not that you can't have a reasonable expectation of a free press if that's the consequences, right? Like, there will inevitably be somebody who is committed enough to the truth to undergo that. But that shouldn't be the expectation of somebody who wants to be a journalist, right? You shouldn't expect that the elected officials in your own country will cause you to have, like, physical bodily injury in your pursuit of the truth.
Right.
That's not a free press.
That is not a free press. That's crazy.
It is
it's crazy. Oh my God. And speaking of craziness, since you took it to your home state of Montana, I'm going to take it down to my good old state of Mississippi, who always has something just doggone interesting to say. So, a Republican state Senate representative by the name of Karl Oliver, in response to Louisiana officials removing the Confederate memorials recently, he responded by saying that anyone who wants to remove Confederate memorials should, in fact, be lynched. In 2017, he said this. This is from because everybody takes to Twitter now, following you know whose example.
Yes.
This is what he said. The destruction of these monuments, erected in loving memory of our family and fellow Southern Americans, is both heinous and horrific. If the, and I use this term extremely loosely, leadership of Louisiana wishes to, in a Nazi-ish fashion, burn books, destroy historical monuments of our history, they should be lynched. Let it be known. I will do all in my power to prevent this from happening in our state.
Jesus.
Right. First of all, may I remind our listeners that I, in fact, still currently live in Mississippi. And this makes me very uncomfortable living here.
Right?
And to add on to this, just to give you guys a little background, Representative Oliver is in charge of a district in Mississippi that includes Money, Mississippi. And if you don't know where Money, Mississippi is and why it's important, Money, Mississippi was where Emmett Till was murdered. Mm-hmm. And, well, lynched. So, when this guy posted this, of course, he is now being a good man, quote unquote. He has recanted his saying. He has recanted and apologized because he really doesn't believe what he said. He just said things out of anger, and he humbly asked for our forgiveness. But when he posted it, most of Mississippi's representatives went, okay, we do not believe, like, we do not follow this guy. Even the ones that are like pro-Confederacy and all that shit, they immediately said, okay, we are not in the same boat as this guy.
Yeah.
But the great people of Mississippi, however, were all behind it. And by people, I don't mean everyone.
Yeah.
There are some very good-minded people here.
Yes. And
there are a lot of black people here.
Yes.
So we don't really care mostly for Confederate monuments. So. And lynchings.
I know. I was going to say you're all super fans of lynching, though, right?
Yeah, there's history there that we don't dig, But so many were right along with him, saying, yeah, lynch them, lynch those people trying to destroy our heritage. And it's insane to me. First of all, that in 2017, a state politician can call for anyone to be lynched. Matter of fact, to let the word lynching come out of your mouth in 2017 in a public forum, it's problematic.
Yeah.
More than problematic. It's insane.
Yeah. But it's apparently not insane, right? Because there are people who agree with you. There are a large population who agree with these politicians who keep saying this stuff like this, like a much larger than there should be, and it's not political suicide to say this stuff. I'm gonna say this even like
to illustrate the problem even more, not only is it not political suicide and so many people are behind it, calls for lynchings publicly by public people have gone through the roof in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I've heard more people call for lynchings than I ever should in 2017. The senator from Texas who called for Trump to be impeached, black senator.
Yes.
He was bombarded, and he's still being bombarded with people calling for him to be lynched.
Yes. Just because he came out and publicly said that he thinks that Trump has broken laws in his office, and that calls for him to be removed from the presidency.
Right. And because he's a black guy. And see, the word lynching is so racially centered.
Yes.
No matter how you use it, no matter who you're calling it for, the word lynching in the American lexicon is so just centered on race. The senator in Texas is, of course, black.
Yes.
So when he does something, and in a lot of cases, especially here in the South, when a black person does something, the response is lynch him.
Yeah.
And with this, Karl Oliver saying the politicians who want to take this down, the people who want to take these Confederate monuments down, should be lynched. But you know what he means. And even to the white politicians who agree with taking down the Confederate monuments, basically he just lumps they might as well be niggas.
I mean, but that's an attitude that has historical precedent also. Right?
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, I was just explaining that Just they might as well be niggas. Like, it's still so much, just so fucking coded. And I love the fact that he bolds our history.
Yeah.
Because I never get tired of hearing that in Mississippi. Man, they're trying to destroy our heritage. It's our history. They were my favorite thing in the world. My favorite thing in the world is when they call Confederates patriots.
Right?
It just goes right over the head. Like, they were true American patriots. They were quite literally fighting against America.
Yes. They wanted to leave America.
Like, you can't call an actual enemy combatant nation true Americans. That's not how that works.
Right.
And some of these people defend the monuments and stuff. It's like, well, not all of the Southerners died for, like, were really wanting to, like, keep slavery, and some of them didn't really want to fight the Union. Doesn't matter. They did. They did. So they weren't heroes. Your history isn't a history of heroes and patriots. It's a history of people who were shitty people, or people who didn't have the cojones to say, you know what, we're not going to stand up to things we know that are wrong.
I literally had this conversation with somebody the other day about Robert E. Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Right, where he was saying, well, I don't know, though, about Robert E. Lee, because he was really just in it for states' rights, and he was very much of, like, Virginia above everybody else, and that's why he was fighting for Virginia. And I'm like, I mean, no, though. Right? It doesn't matter how pure, it doesn't matter if he himself was fighting because they want to take the slaves away, right? It doesn't matter if that's what his motivation was. It doesn't matter how pure his motivations were. He still looked at all the people around him and all of the other people who were trying to secede from the United States over the issue of slavery. And he said, well, you know what, though, like, I don't really agree with you, but I can excuse that, right? Like, that's,
Right.
that, like, I can still put myself on the same side as you. Even though that's your motivation and this is my motivation. Like, I'm still okay being on the same side of this as you.
He didn't fight for his own convictions.
Yeah.
For the people who said, well, you know, he didn't like slavery. He didn't really want to fight for himself. He didn't fight for his own convictions, and that's the case. And then if that is the case, then he's no better. He's not some reluctant soldier. He's not some burdened hero. Same as everyone else. I mean, you have and you have examples of Southern people who are like in Confederate states saying, "We're not going to do this. We're not going to put up with it." Mm-hmm. They had a movie about it last year, Free State of Jones. That's a true story. Mm-hmm. You know, there were people who stood up, but there are no monuments to them. There are no monuments to the Southerners who said, you know what? Screw you guys. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to actually fight for ourselves and fight against what the horrible, horrible things you're doing.
Yeah.
There are no monuments for them. And if someone called for there to be monuments to those people in the South, Southerners would lose their minds.
Yeah. Somebody would get threatened with lynching.
Exactly, of course.
Because that's how Southerners deal with things when they're mad.
Southerners are like children who don't know how to like deal with anything, so they respond in just the one way they learned, and that's lynching.
Yeah. It's like that kid who doesn't know how to deal with feeling frustrated, and so he just punches everybody.
Right. And back to like Karl Oliver, to have a Mississippi State senator on a public level where people can be seen nationally to call for people's lynching, for people living outside of the southern United States, okay, who don't realize this, lynching still happen here.
Yeah.
They still find people hanging in trees in Mississippi every year, multiple times a year. So lynching, when someone calls for a lynching, that is something that's very real to the Southern public. Mm-hmm. So obviously when a senator or a representative, I don't want to say senator, is going, people who want to get rid of Confederate memorials should be lynched. That's fucking scary.
Yeah.
Because I'm black. And like we said earlier, there's a history there.
Yeah.
And I'm not down for for Confederate memorials. And also with that being said, just for me personally, I want a motherfucker to try to come lynch me. Because that's going to be the day that you learn that lynching is bad. For you.
Right, lynching is bad for your health.
Yeah. Jesus. It's just so crazy. It's just so crazy to me.
Yeah.
Man. But yeah, as a matter of fact, anybody listening to this, go and contact Karl Oliver. Go Google him, contact him. Like, let him know how much of a absolute dickbag he is. Because right now, I mean, besides coming out and apologizing, because that's probably so fucking sincere, he is bathing in the support of so many people who are just basically jerking off his ego because he's the one that got up and said what's really true and fought for their Confederate history. So, like, people listening, go send messages to Karl Oliver and tell him, like, let him know that he's an absolute asshat. Do it for me, and do it for yourself. Fuck, do it for Emmett Till.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm gonna end on this news story before I
no, I'm gonna do you one better. Karl Oliver, phone number 601-359-2430. Give him a call. Tell him exactly what you think of him.
Say it again for the people in the cheap seats.
601-359-2430.
Have fun, Karl.
Mm-hmm.
I hope, and like, if you listen to this, I mean, share that, please. Like, if even if you don't share the podcast to people, please share that information with people.
Yes.
Ooh. So, if that's all we have in our news segment today.
I mean, we could yell forever.
We could yell forever, and
but
as hype as I am right now, I could. But I'm going to use this hypeness to talk about our topic that's coming up.
Yes.
So, without further ado, we're going to our musical artist of the week, and then onward to our topic section of the show, where we will discuss mental health in the Black community, impoverished communities, and the South.
All right. So, like I said, this today's featured artist is a local band here out of Memphis. They're called Harlan. It's Harlan. And this first song from them is called Fingertips.
Welcome back to the topic portion of this podcast. I'd like to give another shout out to our artist. I love the title Fingertips. It reminds me of Stevie Wonder. Yeah. as I said, welcome to the topic portion where we'll be discussing mental health in regards to the Black community, the South, and impoverished communities. And we are bringing in today a guest who is, let's say, very close to me. Some would say blood related. Some would say we came from the same place.
I mean, would they say that because you're siblings?
Yes.
That might be
that would be a good reason. But she is a social worker. She's been a social worker for quite a few years. And she has some expertise in the area of dealing with mental health, as well as a lot of insight into how mental health is seen and not portrayed, but dealt with in the South, especially in the rural South. Mm-hmm. So I would like to welcome LaWanda Johnson to the show.
Hi, everybody.
You gotta speak up.
Okay.
She's not used to this, so we're going to might have to give her a minute.
Ha ha.
So yeah. So mental health in the U.S. is always a tough issue. I mean, there's a history of, especially on a political level, politicians not dealing with it properly, and especially here in the South, there is a huge kind of just glancing over of the topic of mental health. And in regards to the Black community, it's a huge problem. I wanted to bring out just a few statistics about mental health in the Black community. First of all, 55% of all Black and African Americans live in the South. Adult Black and African Americans are 20% more likely to report serious psychological distress than adult whites. Adult Black people living below poverty are 3 times more likely to report serious psychological distress than those living above poverty. Adult Black people are more likely to have feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and worthlessness than their white counterparts. Also, African Americans are less likely to die from suicide as teenagers. However, Black teenagers are more likely to attempt suicide than white teenagers. So, in the Black community, like, mental health is a serious issue. Wouldn't you say so?
I would agree that it's a very serious situation. Do you want me to go ahead into the reasons why? I feel like, well, I know and have witnessed the reason why is because we have a tendency, especially in the South, and I don't want to go off into religion right now, but in the South particularly, we don't understand mental health as being a disease, a biological brain disorder that can be diagnosed just like cancer and any other disease. And because of that initial thought about mental disease, we don't address it the way we address other illnesses. We are less likely to receive care because the attitude is that, oh, you know, that's so-and-so. They just got a problem, something's wrong with them, because we don't also identify mental illnesses as families, because we don't educate one another, and it's mostly because we're not educated ourselves.
Right.
So basically the big myth that if we can just dispel would be identifying mental illness as a biological disease.
I've always felt it weird that mental illness is like it's a disease of the brain, and it's like almost as if people forget the brain is a biological organ that can have problems and have sicknesses just as any other organ.
Mm-hmm. And if we're unable also to identify those precursors, which is another thing, we blame what's actually risk factors and triggers into saying they are the causes for the disease, which is totally untrue. People think that if you grew up in poverty, if if you were experienced a traumatic event, if you're only because some people think your mom had schizophrenia, then you'll have schizophrenia. Back to the religion thing, they think it's a demon possession or somebody's being punished for something that they've done. And while all those things can be risk factors, we are all, I would say, unfortunately, I guess would be the right word, we're all born with the capability of becoming seriously and persistently mentally ill. And if those risk factors become part of our lives and we don't have the appropriate coping mechanisms, it opens the gateway for even the lower ranked mental issues to become severe and persistent.
So basically, like, no brain is perfect. Correct. And we all have the possibility of experiencing mental illness. And certain risk factors can trigger the onset of mental illness. And African Americans, especially African Americans in the South, are at a higher risk than many due to socioeconomic reasons, to cultural reasons, and in some cases even religious reasons.
Correct.
And of course, with the attitude towards mental health and the very idea that you're just crazy, you just need to get through it.
Yeah.
I would say on a personal level, and Luanda can attest, I've had my own issues dealing with mental illness, specifically with depression and, my Lord, with anxiety. Mm-hmm. And you hear them both going, because they know. And it took me quite a while to get to a point of accepting it myself with my own preconceived notions of mental health issues and mental illness. But I remember telling Luanda the first time, I was like, I was going to the doctor to get medication, not medication. Wow. To get medication to help control it because I was in a really bad place. And Luanda was very supportive, considering her career. I remember telling another relative of mine, and whose response was, "Oh, you don't need to go to the doctor to get help. You don't need medication. You just need to get your mind right."
And the key phrase: get your mind right. Mm-hmm. So what is it? You're identifying that there's something wrong with the mind, but you're also identifying that you want a person to control something with the mind, with the same mind that is disrupted. Mm-hmm. That is impossible.
All right.
Totally impossible. And I am a believer because I also suffer from anxiety at a different level than Rakeem, but I don't mind sharing that. And because I suffer from it, I'm able to, help him out and identify better because they just need to sit down, or especially in the South, we just need a spanking. They just need to, and it's not that. And can you just imagine yourself in a situation where you can't slow down, you can't help what's happening inside of you, and somebody's just telling you to get your mind right, just sit down, when you're just having, your neurons are firing all over the place. That's your brain that controls you. You don't control it. It's biological.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And people have a failure to understand that. And as I mentioned earlier, things like connections to religion, family dynamics, life experiences, societal factors, and stigma and labeling are inferential. That's what I want people to understand. It's not causal. It's inferential. It has been linked to things like during the stages of development in the womb that neurons are displaced. They make, improper connections. just different things of that nature. Or when you get to certain developmental stages in life, you are unable to cope at those proper stages. And many things are because we don't have the proper coping skills. And that's why I'm a firm believer in medication also, because there are so many advances now in education. I mean, Lord, here I am. Education, true, medication that assists you with identifying what is going on with you, then allowing you to develop coping skills while the medication assists you. Mm-hmm. And I think people are afraid because they think the medication is going to, quote unquote, change who they are. But that's not what it's designed for. It is designed for you to be able to function as normal as possible. And I use the term normal very, very loosely. But to be able to function in society, maintain jobs or obtain jobs, maintain family relationships, and all those things, because that's what gets lost when people don't want to identify and when they're not educated on that mental illness is a real thing. Mm-hmm. And they've also switched over now to trying to do a more psychoeducational and a psychosocial rehab model, which is involving the family and the community in understanding and identifying what mental health is, what mental illnesses are, and knowing the difference between them. And mostly restoring and instilling hope in those people who suffer from these illnesses. So they can see that, okay, I may have schizophrenia, I may have bipolar, but I can try to go to work. I can set my goals and I can take steps because I have support to get it to me and to see me throughout. But in the Black community, when we already aren't able to have the amount of education that's needed to identify that a real mental illness is going on, we also don't have service providers that are willing to provide those services. And then if we don't have insurance, we don't have proper jobs, we can't get to those providers that may be available. Mm-hmm. But we got to get past saying that mama, daddy, grandma, I do have something wrong with me.
Right.
And then being able to know and understand, yes, this is real. This is real. And my child or my family or my friend needs help. And personally, I don't care if you get them the help and walk away if you can't handle it. Because I'd rather you try to help them and then to hinder or hurt them by staying in there with a negative idea of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And people do not realize just the effects that even one person, like with mental illness, untreated, can have, not just on themselves, but their family, their neighborhood, their community. Things that are so like pervasive in the Black community. Things like homelessness, things like crime rates, things like I said homelessness already. Substance abuse.
That's exactly
domestic abuse. But in substance abuse, substance abuse is an epidemic in the Black community.
But are you seeing now the reason why substance use and or abuse is becoming so prevalent? Mm-hmm. A lot of it is due to untreated mental issues because we're self-medicating. So if I can smoke this marijuana, if I can get this crack, if I can do that, then guess what? My voice is slow down a little. My mind slows down a little or speeds up. You know, and if I stay in a constant state of delusion, then when I'm supposed to be, quote unquote, again, normal, then my delusions don't seem so bad.
I'll even say on a very personal level, I don't smoke weed very often, but when I do, it helps my anxiety. Like, now, like I said, I don't have an issue with substance abuse, but like I understand for people with mental illness who are told that you don't need help or you don't need to go seek any assistance for it. I can see how they seek solace and balance in those substances.
And in the Black community, it's easier when you say it was easier to just hang out with your guys or girls and smoke some weed and get into the calm and act like everybody else than to take yourself over to some service provider that's going to really for real tell you that something is wrong. Everybody's going to know you went over there. And that's another reason why even if you start in services, people stop.
Yeah, because of the horrible stigma.
Yeah, it's a lack of intelligence. And I'm not saying black people aren't intelligent, but we just haven't been put in the same place where the same educational opportunities have been allotted to us.
Right.
And even in the white communities, what I have witnessed being here is that when a child or family member is broken or malfunctioned, the money that they've been able to have, not everybody, but they make a way. We're going to go ahead and just put you in an institution, send you away, or take that broken piece out of our family puzzle. And then the education goes untouched also.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the black people, we don't always have the opportunity to just put our family member in a place so we don't hide them away. You have to deal with it. You have to take the ups and the downs and everything else that comes along with it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, not having the money or the availability of resources to treat mental illness is a big issue.
Yeah.
The next big issue, of course, is the church. Because we run there, and I'm a Christian, proud to say. But I also realize in my interpretation of things that God placed everything here. They want to say it's not natural. Well, if he placed somebody here that has the knowledge to help with the situation, then by all means, you can use your spirituality, or whoever you are, Christian or not, you can use whatever your spirituality is or whatever your driving force is to put with the medication and with coping skills. Your religious stuff may help you cope. Let's use it all together instead of letting it fight each other. Mm-hmm. But in our community, we want to just go, let's lay them on the altar and that person is demon possessed and stuff like that, or what somebody do to as a form of punishment. That's what's wrong with that boy or girl. We've got to change the way we think. And we've got to allow the white community that we try to blame a lot of times for things. We're going to have to allow this. So what's the word I want to use? The education, the taboo, I guess,
yeah,
of saying this is part of the white man's education and the white people saying this stuff. We've got to realize that maybe they got a hold to it a little quicker than we did, and maybe that's why they're getting that help. You can't keep on blaming that stuff.
Because I have heard myself, it's said before that, going to see a mental health professional was white people stuff.
Mm-hmm. Like
seeing a therapist, and that was the things that white people did. Black people didn't need that.
Right.
Like we get into this concept, this mindset that we are strong, like strong black people, and we don't need the things that quote unquote white people need. Mm-hmm. Like we don't need we don't need the medication. We don't need the therapists. We don't need to go and see someone because we're, quote unquote, stronger than that. And
you're not a good enough black person if you can't handle everything that's thrown at you in your life.
Because black people, we just existing in this country, we get everything thrown at us. Like our existence is difficult just on the merit of our skin. And we are taught to be strong. We are taught that we have to cope and pull through. Mm-hmm. And if you can't cope, you're not strong enough, quote unquote, in this mindset. Mm-hmm. However, as she was stating, it's an illness. It's a biological change in the way your brain works. Mm-hmm. And that's not something you can just be strong through. And it's not a bad thing if you can't. Exactly. Like it's not a sign that you're not a strong black man or strong black woman. It's not a sign that you're crazy. Because that's the big one. You're ill. You need to go seek treatment.
Exactly.
Just like any other illness. Like I want to applaud last year, Kid Cudi. You know, famous artist sought treatment for his issues with depression publicly. And I very much applauded Kid Cudi for publicly saying that, okay, I'm a black man and I need to go seek help for mental illness. Because in hip-hop and for young black males, you can't do that. You can't say you need help. And we need more people to come up and say, hey, it's okay. It's okay to go need help. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make you less of a black person. Go get help. Make yourself stronger. Make your community stronger.
Mm-hmm. And maybe we won't lose so many people because these people that do go out and commit crimes and all this, you never know the true reason why those crimes were committed. And that's not saying that people with mental illnesses will commit more crimes than a person who does not have one. But the risk factors are much higher due to lack of treatment, due to lack of proper treatment, or just no treatment available. So, I mean, and then I guess education. Education is one of the biggest things, and breaking down these walls and not being afraid, the ones of us who do have knowledge about it, or the ones that care, even inquisitive, we have got to band together and stand up and bring the education out into our communities and not be afraid to say, hey, you know what, if you got it, it's okay. Let us help. We got to build a rapport, among the black community also, because, and just get an understanding. But education, I think, and more family involvement, and I think it'll help on a wide scale with so many other factors, because even the rate of suicide is increasing in the black population. Mm-hmm. And many of those reasons is because of, mental illnesses that are there untreated. And also the parents and other teachers, everything, they don't have the proper education to even identify the onset of those mental illnesses.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I want to jump in because I am an educator and I do work with kids, and I wanted to bring up it's part of it is that teachers aren't trained in how to recognize it. But I'm noticing as I work in Memphis and as I teach in this community and talk to other educators, I've noticed that part of it too is that there is still a systemic problem where symptoms that would be noticed if a student is white are written off as defiance or as disinterest or as any number of other things if that student is black, right? A student who doesn't contribute in class and sleeps all the time in class, instead of that being a warning sign, if the student is black, it's just written off as, well, they don't care. They're not committed. Or a student who is acting out all the time, it's not, or who suddenly starts acting out, it's not a warning sign, it's they're being angry or they're being disruptive, right? And it's not treated like a warning sign, it's treated like something that needs to be punished. And then they're suspended and then they get pushed out into situations that make them more likely to start up with committing crimes, right? Like that's a documented thing. Students who are suspended more frequently and earlier are more prone to committing crimes later in their lives.
Correct.
And so it's all connected.
And if they had education from the beginning as teachers and as parents and in the black community, then those parents could stand up for their child and be like, hey, this is what's going on with my child. They need help. And then it's also that innate situation where, the black students are dehumanized again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're less than everyone else, so ain't nothing wrong with them. They just acting up because, you know, black people like that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Exactly.
if we've got to get past all these biases and pass out just a lack of education. We can't change ones who choose to ignore and do maltreatment, but for the ways we can get in there and let the teachers work together with the parents, and the parents work together with the teachers and with the community. I mean, everything is holistic. Everything can work together, because this is going to become a worse epidemic if we don't all band together and get the word out here. And your teachers, you all should be empowered to stand up and say, hey, you know what? This child is doing this, this, and this. And the reason you should be able to identify it is because they've continued your training. It doesn't take very long. You could sit down for an hour and probably get enough to pick up on that something may be going wrong as far as the mental health. And everything is not just from a delay, because a lot of mental health issues get pushed off as an intellectual deficit.
Yeah.
Two separate things. And we're so easy, in those children, they're not functioning at the normal level, or the level that is, you know, standardized for their age. Because guess what? My brain's not firing. My neurons aren't firing properly. And it's even been identified as having a firestorm in your head. And I don't know about you guys, but if that's going on in my head, do you think I care if 2 + 2 is 4?
Yeah.
I can't even tell you what 2 is today. And I can also speak on my child, my youngest child. She has some issues with that. She has not been diagnosed with ADHD, but she's so manic all the time that she basically has a firestorm going on in her head. And there are days when she goes to school and she may tell you she doesn't even know what her name is. That's not where her brain is doing that day. But the next day she could go in and be just fine. So basically she just had an episode. And if there's not a teacher or anyone in that environment that can identify those things, she'll probably end up either in special education or getting kicked out of school. Because we've got to stop labeling. And it really, like I said, it hits on both sides of the situation with, you know, the myths in the black community from what we believe, the lack of available resources, and on the other side of the spectrum where people are still dehumanizing us as black people anyway, as people. So we can't possibly have the same things going on as the rest of the world. And we definitely don't need to get treated because it's just how we are.
Right. Like, as far as like black people, we as a community is concerned, we have to really start stepping up and trying to, you know, help these things, you know, starting to change these stigmas, you know, change these negative attitudes, because like we have to do it.
Right.
Not just on the whole, we got to look out for our people, our community, and ourselves, but the very fact that, and especially in the South, politically, mental health and social services in general is just demolished. It's like it's constantly being cut. It's constantly being told that it's not useful. They're very purposefully, it seems, targeting the people who need the most help.
Because if you identify that we need the help, then guess what? You identify that we have a problem.
Right.
And that's just another problem that we have to deal with when we have so many other things that are more important because they're not touching us that way. Because if we can stop helping these people, I mean, this is that mindset. If we stop helping them, we stop bringing them to the limelight, then maybe they'll just go away. You know? I mean, that's what you deal with in so many places. If I got a zit on my face, if I keep on covering up with makeup, eventually, what's going to happen?
Right.
It's either going to mold and become part of your face, or somebody's going to knock that makeup off and everything is going to be revealed.
According to these politicians, it's very much not their problem. They don't understand how even one person who is suffering from mental illness untreated can affect
an entire
community.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they come up and talk about why the crime rates are so high and why this is happening, while that is happening, and continuing to just brush off mental health to the side, not realizing that if you're focused on this issue, you could help alleviate these problems that you think are plaguing society.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you just won't get that.
You got to get to the root
Right.
of it. I mean, that's an old saying, but you got to get to the root of it. And honestly, one person in a small rural community here can affect an entire community, because they'll get labeled and stigmatized as, oh, you know, they're that one crazy person in town. So whenever anything happens, if it's something gets stolen, torn up, or somebody's walking down the street doing something, it'll always be that person. And then their family gets labeled. Then, you know, then the family gets upset with the community. So there's your barrier right there. And then that stigma and stuff keeps, and then making the children afraid of that person.
Right.
You know, I had a man in my community growing up. This man is not mentally ill. To my knowledge, he had never been diagnosed, but he had intellectual difficulties. But guess what? Everybody say, oh, he just crazy. So every time you seen him coming around, he couldn't verbalize because he was hearing impaired. But when he's flailing his arms and he's trying to communicate, they think he acting crazy. The kids are scared of him and everything, so he got labeled. Then you guess what? He's not going to be able to get a regular job, even though he's very smart and very capable. So then he just becomes another plague member, a part of that community that's considered somebody people having to take care of, all kinds of things like that.
What I did, and one thing I knew came up a lot growing up with people with mental illnesses that were diagnosed. It became, oh, well, this person's just playing crazy to get a check.
Oh yeah, playing crazy.
And I'm sure that some of our listeners have heard the same thing. Oh, this person's not really crazy. They just trying to get a check. They're trying to get that government check. It was always insane to me that
minimize.
Yeah, it would people would rather in their minds have someone defrauding the government than actually having a mental illness.
And realizing that if they had the proper services, guess what? They may not have to, quote unquote, be on a check, because they will have what's needed to properly maintain and obtain a regular job. It may not be paying as much, or they may not even be able to work it on a regular hourly base. But they would have value within themselves. Other people would value them because they see them making efforts to function as a regular part of society. And believe me, people want to. They want it. But if everybody is pushing them to the side, if they're not getting what they need, they're unable to do so. Mental illness is not something you just wake up in the morning and decide, I'm going to lose my mind today. And then you can't go back that afternoon and say, well, I'm going to unlose my mind now. That's not how it works. This is something that you can clearly get an MRI and look at the brain and see that something is wrong. Something is not threaded the same way. You're missing gray matter. Your serotonin levels, everything is off. And that's what. And as long as we keep taking money away from it, there's going to be no further research. I mean, there are several other states that are so far advanced than we are. Another state developed, I think it's called ACT, and it's a daily case management with an interdisciplinary team that works on individual clients as a unit. So they're there for them all day, every day. And that's what we need. That's what I'm not saying we might be able to do that for everyone, but this is for severe persistent mental illness. But as far as, you know, the ones, like I said, that are lower ranked, we need something there for them. And it needs to not have any negative connotations. We can't, like I said, change people's opinions without education, without knowledge. Some people may never change, but at least we know we took the steps to put the education out there. And like I said, if we can see mental illness like we see cancer, like we see diabetes, then maybe we can get somewhere.
Right. We have to come in and we first to work on our own views on what mental illness is. Mm-hmm. And once we do that and start, working towards facing the stigma and helping those in need, we need to start demanding our representatives to do what they're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. We need to, it's like, okay, we as a community are here stepping up to work on this issue. We are electing you into office so you can help work on the issue. You do it. Stop cutting funding.
Yeah.
Stop pretending like this isn't an issue. Stop trying to push the issue off to something else, to somewhere else. Because it's here and it's real. And you have to step up just as we are stepping up to help the people who need help, to help them, to help their community, to help our society as a whole. Because we're never going to get anywhere, all of us. And this is, we're speaking in terms of the Black community and poor and Southern communities in general. But the country as a whole is affected by this. And if we don't step up for those people in those communities, then we as a people as a whole are going to be much worse off. We're going to see these issues persist. We're going to see the crime rate and suicide rates and substance abuse rates, unemployment, teen pregnancy, homelessness. All these things, we're going to continue to see them persist over and over and over again because we refuse. Yeah, we don't get to the root of the issue. We refuse to see mental health as a priority. Mm-hmm. And it is very much an absolute priority.
And I'm not going to downgrade, Mississippi and stuff as a whole, because many jobs do have, employee assistance programs and things like that for the regular employees who may be having or experiencing any kind of onset of even just mental burnout. So many jobs do have those offerings for the professionals, which I applaud them for that. And I think the other people, especially the ones of us who do work in mental health fields, that's important for us to have. And the other jobs do need to kind of get on the boat, because once we get burnt out, especially from hearing that, okay, we're having all these cuts, we can't get paid properly, that's going to make a lackluster among the helping professionals. Mm-hmm. We're not offering the people the quality of care when they do build up the encouragement to come on in. So that, like you were saying, it is a whole systems problem. It's a system of, proper service provision, who can receive services, where the services are located, all of those things. But without being educated about it and someone standing up and saying it's okay that this is going wrong with you, it's okay that this is a problem, then we're not going to be able to start from anywhere. Right. Somebody's got to stand up and identify this as a real disease.
Mm-hmm. I had to fight the urge to applaud just then. She is very right. Very right.
Mental health has just been something that I guess Rakeem and I too have been, part of, because we've experienced it and we've also heard stories about it. So just very passionate about it. And I want people to get the help that they need. I'd love to see everybody be able to function at their best. My best and your best, we're all different. But I want people to have what they need. The same way I want a cancer patient to get chemo, I want mental health patients to get medication, because that is their lifeline. And that recovery is possible. And I think that's another thing. Once you get this diagnosis, people get afraid and think they're never going to be, I keep using right, but I use it, like I said, very loosely. They're not going to be able to do what they want to do. And these people had goals and dreams too. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they just lose them. They don't have the same will or drive or the stability to complete the things that they set out to complete. But if they had their medication or had that person, just some people only need a therapist, somebody to help them write this stuff out and to help them develop coping skills, they could still, make these things happen. Mm-hmm. And it affects every other system, like he was saying, the unemployment rates and all of that. The poverty rates, it would change. At least a large percentage would change if we dealt with the underlying problems of mental health affecting our people. These are our people. Mm-hmm. They're not animals. They're not anything else. They're people. Hell, some people treat their dogs better than they do people with mental illnesses. Mm-hmm. And they'll spend thousands to study animals, but not on people.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Oh my gosh.
I feel like there's so much, and it's like I said, it's something I'm really passionate about, and there's so much I could say, and I do apologize I'm not as prepared as I was chosen to be, as I planned to be, but just like I said, if nobody thinks about or remembers anything else today, I just want everybody to understand that mental illness is a disease that has treatment, gives people hope and hope for recovery. It is out there, and we've all got to work together to make sure that it is treated as such.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very right, very right. Well, LaWanda, we are going to have more discussions on mental health because this is just one area that we were covering for today's show. Mm-hmm. But we are going to have further discussions on mental health, and we're going to have you back on as our as our expert, since you've dedicated your life to this, and it's something that really needs to be talked about, and we are going to continue talking about it. That's what this podcast is for, getting voices out there. And mental health is a major thing that people need to talk about. Mm-hmm. Normally we do resources at the end of our show, but since LaWanda is not going to be sitting here for our sex segment, I'm going to let her give out a few resources that she would like to give to any of our listeners, for our listeners to share, or if they need it themselves to use.
And these resources are going to be just for Lafayette County and Oxford area, only because that's what I'm familiar with as for the listeners that are in this area. And, of course, when we have another, I'll try to gather more.
Right. And with that being said, if you're outside the area, you could probably honestly still, you can look it up, and you could probably even contact some of these, and they could direct you to where you need to go.
Definitely.
I do have some resources available that I'm going to give at the end of the program for people who are in Memphis. Because I know a lot of our listeners are located in Memphis also.
All right.
Okay. The first one, of course, is communtiy. It's located here. The main office is located here in Oxford, out on Highway 6. And that number is 662-234-7521. They offer an array of services dealing with mental health and substance abuse. You can actually, if you have a diagnosis of both or just one, they have many different services. The med clinic, therapists, they have several grants that people may qualify for to get those services paid for. So always, just make it start somewhere. They have regional centers all over the state, so you can pretty much look any of those up. The Psychological Services Center here in Oxford is 662-915-7385. Behavioral Health Systems, 662-205-5118. The Oxford Counseling Center, 662-371-1711. Merit Health, and I think they're pretty new on the scene, but they're a good mental health provider in Batesville, 662-563-5611. And I definitely don't want to leave out the fact that our children also suffer from many types of mental illnesses, and they have a play therapy center. And just in short, people watch your children play. And they can tell by the way that they play, the ideas, their imagination and things to help assess if there are any mental health issues going on and what they may be. Because in children, it's so hard to diagnose at certain ages. You watch them over a progression of time. But anyway, Play Therapy Center is 662-388-0148. Can't hurt you to make a call. Just ask a question. Even if it's not something you feel you need, they can direct you to other resources that may be of help to you.
All right. And like I was saying, if you're outside of our area, still, if you like, you can look these places up. You could even contact them, and they could help get you directed to similar services in your area. Because like I said, this is very important. So if you feel like you need to, please seek out and contact these resources. Use them. And there, as Esme stated, there will be more resources given at the end of the show. So stay tuned to get more. But
and we'll also offer links to all of these resources in the episode information, so you can see the episode information to get links to the websites.
Right. So, with that being said, we're going to bid LaWanda goodbye.
Thank you guys for letting me come on.
You are very welcome, and we're going to have you back on. And we're going to move on to Esme's sex segment of the week.
After a quick segment from our featured artist of the week, Harlan. Welcome back. Thanks again to Harlan for providing our music for this week's episode. And now we are moving into the sex segment, which is my favorite part of every episode.
And I don't know what you're doing this time.
Ooh, I kept this a surprise from you?
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm good like that. So, we did not mention at any point yet this episode that one of the reasons that we chose to talk about mental health in this episode is because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we thought we would draw some awareness to a specific issue with regards to mental health. But, Keem, do you know what other month May is?
I do not. Esme, what other month is it?
May is also Masturbation Month.
Really?
It really is.
Oh, joy. Well, I've been celebrating Masturbation Month the entire time and didn't even know it.
That's what I'm saying. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about masturbation. I thought about going really cheesy there for a second, but I opted out of it at the last second. But I want to talk a little bit about masturbation in honor of it being Masturbation Month. So I feel like masturbation gets kind of like an unfair break in our society, right?
Would you say it's got a rough hand?
No, you would say that. I would not say that because that was terrible. Why did you say that?
I hope somebody appreciates my joke.
I don't appreciate your joke. Sorry. Love you, but no. Anyway, but I sort of feel like masturbation gets an unfair position in our society, right? It's treated in a very utilitarian way, or even bordering on, like, sometimes the narrative around masturbation is that it's like sad or pathetic, right? It's a thing that you do if you can't find a person, right? But that's not really fair, and that's not the best that we can do. We can do better. That seems to be a recurring theme, right, in my sex segments, is, guys, we can do better. But so masturbation sometimes gets this narrative of, like I said, like it's a thing that you do instead of having sex with another person. But I don't think that that's necessarily what it needs to be, right? And I myself, there's a lot of different reasons that you can want to masturbate, right? Like maybe you're really horny, but you would like to have sex with another person, but you don't, for whatever reason, have another person who you are able to do that with at that moment. Maybe your partner is far away. Maybe you don't have a partner at the moment. Whatever, right?
Or maybe, just for me personally, it helps me sleep.
I do the same thing, right? Like I have that's definitely something that I use it for as well, right? Like I bust out my vibrator, get myself off real fast, and then I can immediately almost fall asleep. It relieves that level of stress and helps turn off the busyness of my brain in order to help me sleep. And that's another thing that it can be used for, right? It does still have, even though it doesn't have quite the same effects as partnered sex, it does still have like that release of the happy chemicals in your brain. When you have that orgasm, even though it's by yourself, you don't get quite the same connection, but you still get that release of happy chemicals that can reduce anxiety. It can reduce the goingness of your brain and help it make it easier to sleep. And there's lots of different reasons that you might want to masturbate, but one that I think gets overlooked way too often is that masturbation is your number one source of information about what turns you on. Right? Like, sorry?
I said right, I was agreeing.
Yeah. So, like, especially for people who have difficulty enjoying partnered sex, and I'm not going to say exclusively, but this is extremely common among women and people who are raised as female, right? Like people who are socialized from a young age as female typically have a very difficult time expressing themselves and expressing to a male partner, especially what turns them on, like actually turns them on, because it's expected, we are socialized that it's expected of us to perform pleasure for our partners, and that's why like faking it is such a big problem, especially among young women, right? Because we expect that our partner should turn us on, and we expect that the things that our partner is doing to us should be pleasing to us and be pleasurable for us. And if they are not, we have a very, very hard time vocalizing that and telling our partner what does turn us on. And that goes back to what we talked about last week with the toxic masculinity, where a lot of men think that they should, like, that the things that they do, like this is the script, right? That men are pleasing for women, right? Like the fact that they are men is pleasurable to women. And so then anything that they could do to a woman's body must inherently cause pleasure. But that's not necessarily the case, because guess what? Every person is a different person, and every person likes their body touched in different ways, right? There is no one formula that will be good for every single person. There's just not. Really. Like, every person that you are going to encounter is different, and they're going to like different things done. And the only way for you to know what your partner wants done to them is if your partner can communicate with you what things feel good and how to do things so that they feel better. That's how you're going to please a partner, right? Like, that's how you and your partner are going to please each other, is if both of you are communicating all the time about what feels good and how to make it feel better. And the number one way to gather information about how you like your body touched is to touch your body a whole bunch. I mean, surprise, right? Surprise.
Surprise.
Yeah, like, I'm sure everybody is shocked by this information, but not everybody thinks of it like this, right? And I think to make this really happen, so there's, again, to go back to the common cultural like script that we have, right? We see masturbation as something that's really utilitarian, right? Like, it's a thing that you do to get off. And so everyone, like male people, female people, non-binary people, all kinds of people fall into this pattern of just doing the thing because you're inside your body. Like, you can tell the things that are going to get you off quickly. And we have a tendency to just do the things that will get us off quickly and then be done with it. Right? Because like orgasm is the goal. And so you do the things and you fast forward through it and you get to the orgasm and then you're done. And then you can go to sleep, or you can go watch TV, or you can go do whatever it is that you're going to do. Go take your exam, whatever it is that you're about to go do. Like, you can now go do it because you got that out of the way. But I think that we're all missing if we only have that kind of masturbation. Like, there's a time and a place for that kind of masturbation, right? But
Right.
if we only do that, we're missing out on opportunities to try out different kinds of sensations, right? So I am extremely curious about my body. And so sometimes I will do things like, I wonder if I can get off just by doing this thing, right? Like, I typically need like internal and external stimulation to get off, like at the same time. Like, but I wonder if I were to get myself really, really turned on mentally before I touched anything, like, I wonder if I could get off with just internal or just external stimulation, right? Like, this is an experiment that I'm trying on myself. Like, let me try different ways of touching myself and see what happens. Right? See what happens. Right? Or, like, I really like when this type of thing is done to me. Okay, well, let me take a look at my anatomy and really think about how, like, this kind of touch. How would I describe this particular kind of touch to a partner? This is something that a lot of people, myself included, are really bad at, right? Like, describing how to do this specific thing in this specific place in that specific way, right? To do that thing that feels so good, right? But the way to do that is to figure out, well, first off, figure out what that thing is, right? Because you're inside of your body. Like, when you're just doing a thing to yourself, you don't need to be able to communicate it because you can feel it. But, like, this is an opportunity now. If you are open to a different kind of masturbation, you can now say to yourself, okay, well, what is this touch, right? Like, okay, so this is on the right side. All right, well, is it up and down, or is it side to side, or is it circles, or is it like alternating, or do you want to like switch frequently, or do you want to like do this, like, there's all sorts of different things that you can figure out. I have found some really, really extremely good sensations when I was like, okay, well, what's a way that I've never touched myself before? Let me try a thing. Like, let me read up on the internet and see what other people like to do. And, oh, that's an interesting thing. I've never had anybody do that to me before. I wonder if I would like it. Let me try it. Oh, hell yes, I like this. like, there's so much opportunity to explore different kinds of things when you approach masturbation as more than just this utilitarian way to like achieve an orgasm so that you no longer have that physical urge, right? There's lots of different reasons, and we have a tendency to narrow down the number of reasons and the number of kind of like circumstances under which we masturbate. But I feel like if we were to open that up and to approach it more in a larger variety of ways, and to approach it more playfully and with more of a mind of experimentation sometimes, like this can be a really good source of information about our bodies that we can then communicate with our partners to like have better sex, right? Whether we're by ourselves or with other people, right? Having more knowledge about your body and more varieties of touch that you enjoy, and having more knowledge about that is only going to lead to you having better sex, whether you're by yourself or with people. That's all it is. So that's my speech.
That's a speech.
Touch yourselves, people. Touch yourselves. That's what I'm saying.
I don't want anybody else. When I think about anything, I touch myself. I'm going to celebrate Masturbation Month tonight.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Although I don't know why I said that, because I am basically like let's reduce the stigma of talking about sex, including masturbation. So I'm sorry for that. That was my bad.
I'm doing it out of celebration.
That's what I'm saying.
I want to participate.
Mm-hmm. Also, addendum, don't forget that you can touch yourself even if you are with a partner. That's totally a thing, and it can be extremely hot. Right?
Yes.
And that's also, speaking of gathering information, that can be an extremely good way of communicating with your partner what it is that you like. Especially if you have a hard time finding the words to describe what you like, you can say, you can tell your partner, okay, well, lay back and watch this because this is what I like. And then you lay back in a way that your partner has a great view of your junk while you touch yourself. And your partner can see the ways that you touch yourself. Your partner can see what kind of motions you use and where on your body you're touching and how fast you want it and how, like, all these different pieces of information that you can see. Your partner can see if you are changing your technique frequently or if you're changing location frequently, right? That can be a really, really good nonverbal way of communicating with a partner how you want to be touched. And also, it's really freaking hot. I don't know if you know. Many people find this kind of thing extremely hot, right? Like to lay back and to see your partner like touching themselves in exactly the way they want to be touched, and watching and hearing watching your facial expressions and hearing the changes in your breathing and in your voice as you do this can be extremely hot. Extremely hot. So It's not something that's weird. It's not something that's embarrassing. It's just not done very often, and so it's not part of the script that we use. But it can be extremely hot.
You can just look back at them and say, hey, want to see something cool?
That's what I'm saying. It's a whole thing. So.
And for some people, it's a whole thing.
No, sorry.
All right. I'm trying.
You're trying too hard.
It's also apparently bad pun month.
No, that's just, you have a bad pun life, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's true. I have an obsession.
Mm-hmm.
Masturbatory puns.
Yes, that seems to be what you are prone to, actually.
Yes.
Anyway.
I'm sorry. So, that looks like we've come to an end of our show.
It certainly does.
Certainly does. Esme, would you care to give some of those resources you mentioned earlier?
All right. So I am realizing that I'm a lot lazier than LaWanda is, and I also have fewer connections. But I do have one really, really great one for our listeners who are in Memphis. If you are experiencing a crisis, right, a mental health crisis, or any kind of crisis in your life, contact the Memphis Crisis Center. Their hotline is 901-274-7477. And they can help you deal with any kind of crisis in your life, be it mental health crisis or abuse, domestic abuse, or a housing crisis, any kind of crisis that you're dealing with. But also, if you are in a place where you need to seek out mental health resources, they can help connect you with that, right? Even if you are not sure that you're having a crisis, right? Like if you're waffling to yourself, well, like I know that I need help, but I'm not sure if this is a crisis or not, contact them because they have the resources to connect you with the help that you need, right? You can say to them, this is what I'm experiencing, and they will help put you in touch with the resources that you need to help deal with whatever it is that you're going through. I've met a lot of people who work at the Memphis Crisis Center, and they're extremely good people who are extremely caring. They're very, very helpful, and they are really committed to helping put people in touch with what they need. This is an extremely great resource in Memphis. So that's my big one. Like I said, I didn't write down all the phone numbers that LaWanda gave out, but I did write down the names of the resources that she linked for Lafayette County and Oxford, and we will get those links put into the episode information as well as the information for the Memphis Crisis Center, so that you can contact those things easily, no matter where you are.
And I wanted to add two things in particular. One, this is one thing that everyone should know. It should really be gotten out there. It's shared by multiple people all the time. But the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. If you need it or know someone who needs it, the contact for that is 1-800-273-8255. As we discussed before, mental illness and mental health is a very important issue. And if you are having thoughts of suicide or know someone that is having thoughts of suicide, please give the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline a call. It is 1-800-273-8255. Save a life. Okay? Save a life. And my final thing I wanted to highlight, this is actually not on any of the topics we've discussed. But over the weekend, I went to Soul Aid in Memphis, Tennessee, a spectacular event to raise money for the Soulsville USA Festival. This is a festival in Memphis to benefit and highlight the neighborhood of Soulsville, USA. The neighborhood of Stax Records. It is an area that is pivotal to the growth and history of American music. Like I said, we went to a amazing concert from Tank and the Bangas. The concert may have conjured up a tornado. Who knows?
It certainly seemed like it.
It seemed like it, but it was spectacular. It was incredible. Just the atmosphere was awesome. And we would really like for our listeners to go and, check out Soulsville USA, offer your support for just incredible soul music and an incredible part of, like I said, the history of soul music and the history of American music right here in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, Soulsville USA is a neighborhood in South Memphis. Like Keem said, it's the home of Stax Records. It was the birthplace of many of the musicians who came out of Memphis. Many of them were located down in Soulsville. And now the Soulsville USA Festival is a free art, music, and culture festival that takes place. They're making it an annual thing. It takes place in Soulsville, USA. It's there to draw people into the community, to show what kinds of things are still happening in that neighborhood, to bring people and to bring money and to bring life back into that community. And this year, in 2017, it is taking place on October 21st. And like I said, this event is completely free. But in order to provide that kind of thing, they have 3 music stages, guys. 3 music stages that run all day, in addition to all of the other events that happen throughout the community in the course of that weekend. And so to raise money for it, they have all kinds of events. They've got fundraisers, they have auctions, they have all kinds of things that are coming up. And you can find information about the festival and about how to financially support this festival if you go to soulsvilleusafestival.com. They have all that information there.
And please, hey, wherever you are in the country or you're overseas, in October, come down to the festival. Come enjoy some good music and just a great time. Unfortunately, I'll be in law school in Brooklyn at the time, so I doubt I'll be able to make it. Mm-hmm. But
I will be there.
Oh yeah, she will be there
for sure. I will be there.
And come down for me. Come down because I can't be there.
Come take pictures and then send them to Keem on Facebook to make him jealous.
Yes, make me jealous. I mean, I will have a breakdown on Facebook Live just to show my jealousy.
Yes.
So again, come down and show your support for, especially all the soul lovers and who just love music. Come show your support. Go to soulsvilleusafestival.com. Mm-hmm. And please show your support. Usually this is where we end the show, but I would like to, let you guys know a little bit that we have in the wings. Try to, hype us up. Hype us up a little bit. So, June is Pride Month.
Woo!
And the Out of Voices podcast would very much like to highlight some of the voices and issues in the LGBTQ community. So for the month of June, we're going to have multiple subjects that are related to Pride, with multiple special guests to come in and discuss it. So tune in the month of June to hear the things that people have to say, discuss some issues, and hopefully we'll be able to hear from some of you all on things you might want to discuss or something you feel passionate about having to do with Pride for this month. Because like I said, we are very open to hearing what other people have to say. So this podcast is all about getting people's voices out there and letting issues be spoken about. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, contact us if you'd like. Please tune in the month of June, because we're going to have some great shows with some absolutely spectacular special guests. I am really looking forward to it. And coming from cis black male here, cis black straight male, I'm excited for Pride Month on the show. I am hoping to learn more myself. I am not as knowledgeable as I could be. So hopefully I'm going to get some education here.
That's the idea.
That's the idea.
Also, open call. So Keem kind of danced around this, but did not specifically call it out. One of the things that we are working toward at the end of the month is to have an opportunity for anybody, any of our listeners who have questions about what things are or what things mean or anything about the LGBT experience in the United States. If you have questions, please get with us on Facebook and let us know those, because we are working to have a forum for those to be answered before the end of this month.
Yes.
We want to answer your questions. We want to get information out about the LGBT experience in America right now. So if you have questions about anything, right, anything regarding gender or sexuality or identity, orientation, any of that, please get with us on Facebook, and we will happily figure out how to answer those.
Right.
Open call for questions.
Open call. And as always, we are looking to promote local and up-and-coming artists, and when not just local, you could be anywhere in the country, but if you're listening and you know someone or you are an artist who would like to have their music featured on our show, please contact us and we'll see what we can do about getting you on the show.
Please contact us ASAP, because we are barely staying ahead of our recording schedule with getting these bands set up.
Like Memphis is a like musical area, but Oxford not so much. So it's hard. It's hard for me to find people. But we are looking to promote people. So please get in contact with us.
Reach out.
We love hearing new music. We love promoting and getting people out there. We love it. So, like I said, let us know. I want to hear some tunes, man.
Oh, speaking of which, our featured artist today was Harlan out of Memphis. You can find them at hrln.bandcamp.com to download the tracks that you heard today and to get more information about their performing schedule. So, hrln.bandcamp.com.
Check them out.
Yes.
Even if it doesn't sound like your bag, check it out anyway. Because once again, I was pleasantly surprised.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, I think that's everything.
Mm-hmm. That's all.
We are going to bid you all a good evening. Signing off. This has been Rakim and Esmeralda D. Apollo.
Good night, y'all.
And we wish y'all a good night and a good week. We are out.
But there are these things that matter, and they really fucking matter. There's like 4 things that matter, and they really fucking matter. I mean, objectively, I mean, you should care, especially you, if you thought about it for 5 fucking minutes.